Jack Levin is an imaging software pioneer and a technical advisor to PhotoDay. He is currently the founder and CEO of Nventify, maker of cloud-based imaging processing software. Before Nventify, he co-founded Image Shack and YFrog, which provided image delivery and hosting for MySpace and Twitter. In the early days of his career, Jack was among the first employees at Google, working as an infrastructure engineer, overseeing early partnerships with Netscape, Yahoo, AOL, Ask, and many others. We are so fortunate to have him advising our technical team as we develop leading-edge photo management technology for volume photographers. I got to tap into his vast knowledge of the technical side of image management and his wisdom about building a business from the bottom up. I hope you enjoy this interview.
On the technical front, one thing that changed obviously is bandwidth. So bandwidth allows you to download bigger size images quicker. Your monitors are better, so you can actually see what exactly that you're purchasing. You can also play with image manipulation, and you can like on the platform side, you can actually give photographers a chance to adjust images right on your server. So like if they're not really adapted using Lightroom or any other, Photoshop-like software elements in their studio, they can do that in the cloud and do it effectively and fast. So those are the things that are new. And then obviously the other thing is, like, from the consumer perspective, a lot of commerce and e-commerce is done on mobile devices. So ability to size the images appropriately for Android being, WebP, the format of choice, or iPhone now launched their own format called Hive, is also, important, because part of the business is to be able to see a gallery and then purchase from that gallery. Just to give you a quick example, something that was not possible before is that you go to a mountain to ski or snowboard, and you have those photographers pretty much on every mountaintop, and they take your picture, and then at the end of the day, you go down to a lobby of your hotel or go to a restaurant, open up the app, and there's a gallery of all the pictures that they took of you, which they did for free, and then you select 5, 6, 10 images that you really like, and by the time you get home, they already are being printed and are on the way to you. So a combination of being able to transmit images to the cloud, and then the cloud share it with your mobile device, and then complete the loop by allowing the end consumer to purchase the kind of like final product, is something that we haven't seen 10 years ago, for example. There is, let's say, 5 top vendors, and when I say vendors, I mean the companies that produce cameras, so produce hardware. And what from the marketing perspective, it feels like the more pixels you can jam within a file, the better the quality is, which is often not true. And the reason why it's not true is because the sensor size within the camera can only sustain so much voltage and so much current without creating artifacts. So in many ways, buying a higher end camera, paying the same amount of dollars for a camera that has lower resolution but costs the same as yet another vendor's camera that apparently can produce higher resolution, does not necessarily actually, that would be a good thing, because you then will end up paying for things like optics and internal camera image processing and all of the file format options, not just the number of pixels that you're going to be jamming into a file. So when I said that not all pixels are created equal, basically the pixel density of, let's say, 30 megapixel file versus 12 megapixel file, the quality of the 12 megapixel could be much better because the camera has easier time to work and make those pixels more true to life than the camera that's advertising itself being a 30 megapixel camera and therefore better. So I think that's a very key element to remember when purchasing equipment, is that, definitely not all pixels are created equal. I would say that definitely photographers should work with the right vendor, and by vendor I mean, guys like yourself or anybody out there who has spent quite a bit of time working on their platform, that do not necessarily overcompress images, allow for tons of options, allow for, let's say, unlimited storage and better delivery. So I mean, there's a lot of options out there. So my advice would be is like, do your homework, read reviews, see what works for you. Like, for example, there are sites that are specific to wedding photography. And if you're into wedding photography, you should consider top 5 platforms to store your artwork, so to speak. And then there are sites for sports photography, and there's also sites that involve community. So there's tons of options that you should be able to, use Google and do research for and get what you need. So I would say perhaps if you're starting out as a photographer, get something that's general purpose. Something like, Snapfish comes to mind. Snapfish.com has been around for like 25 years. Clearly, they know what they're doing, and they have a ton of general purpose features. But as you develop your skills and you're moving, let's say, from sports to wedding photography or to portraits or what have you, then you can end up specializing with a platform that works specifically for you, and you can just get better within more in-depth but limited scope of the kind of like the experiences that you're trying to digitally produce. In the last 5 years, and more so today, we have had an abundance of storage. Uh, nobody ever said that storage is expensive, and what's a lot of platforms are doing is that they're giving out free storage, and of course they do pay for it themselves. But where they make their money on is on image delivery, manipulation, photo books, pretty much the end product. That's where the margins are. Storage for businesses is a very, very low margin business. And you can see that due to the fact that there is the Dropbox and Box.com. And for example, Box competes with Dropbox by being more business oriented. So they do document editing and spreadsheets and in collaboration, where Dropbox is kind of like free for all shared folder, so to speak, right? And then if you look at those two, you also should consider iCloud. There's iCloud, Google Drive, um, Microsoft has Live Drive. All of that stuff is free, and their first tier that you need to pay for is like $2 a month, and you get like 100 gig for that, which is like tons of space, and you pay very, very little. So ultimately, I would say storage is really never been or will not be a problem where you end up spending a lot of money on. So don't really worry about it. Consider features that are added on top of storage. Like, is that storage accessible? Can you get your data back? What formats can you get it back? What are the other features that the company that stores your content, will do for you? Will it allow tagging, sorting, this and that? So yeah, I would say, businesses that are trying to optimize storage are probably not gonna, exist for much longer. I would say definitely choose a platform that existed for a while and that can scale for what you need to do. So, in other words, in the last 10 years, we have seen a lot of different platforms that kind of like bubbled up and then ultimately disappeared. Now, the reasons why they failed was not necessarily that they didn't have a great product. They were either purchased, or there, like with any startups, there could have been a founder friction and they would fall apart due to kind of like an internal, friction within the company. So I would say, if you were to invest, first of all, invest in your own skill as a photographer first and foremost, and then invest in the proper judgment as far as, don't go after the newest, shiniest thing out there, but actually spend time talking to people, see what they're using, fellow photographers, so that you can actually get into a platform that can probably would have more features right now that you could use, but at least that you can grow with them. Bandwidth is much cheaper out there. You definitely need to adapt your photography skills to see if you're doing prints, if you're doing photo books, or if you're doing online mobile galleries. So that is important, and you need to be aware that there's multitude of ways to consume your, I guess, artistic digital end product. So, and you just need to know what exactly is that you're going after. There's actually people out there, they're not buying DSLRs at all. They're using cameras that are much smaller. They're using iPhones to do all kinds of things that they're amazing. So definitely I could see a lot of handheld stuff with the features embedded. Like, for example, the portrait mode on this thing is amazing. When you take a picture as a portrait, you can then go tap edit, and you can choose your own F number. So you can digitally blur the background within your iPhone post factum after you took the picture. Now, usually that sort of edit element was reserved for something like a Lightroom or Photoshop or anything out there. But now you can do all that within seconds within your phone before you send the picture out there to your iCloud. So definitely there's more options like that, and they should not be ignored, because you can get a lot of interesting stuff done. Like, for example, if you're really good with your iPhone and you're about to get a project, you can immediately send samples of the work that you're doing from the composition perspective, right? Because there's the technology aspect, but then there's the composition aspect. So by being able to send your client what you just did on a mobile device with the shared iCloud link, can land you, a project for the next month or 2 months or so, if you're quick enough, and then you can blow up the competition who is logging with themselves, a bunch of lenses and a couple of camera bodies, right? So that's what I'm saying. So definitely adapt to the new technologies, study them. So iPhone is great, but then there's the Google Pixel 3. They claim some amazing night photography that you could do. So definitely that's something else out there that could be a thing, right, for people who are doing low light photography, right? So you don't have to invest into Leicas, Noctilux lenses that are like worth, I don't know, isn't it like $50,000, like one lens that's like that big from Leica? It's crazy, right? Noctilux, 50,000. So much better to get something under $1,000 and do pretty much the same thing. So anyway, yeah, I would say there's more and more tools out there, but don't ignore what's like literally under your feet. Explore what you have, and you don't need to invest a lot of money to produce something amazing. So John and Rainer and I would go way back. I think we met at one of the startup conferences. It was, I believe it was Startup Grind, and we really hit it off pretty much from day one, and we've been in contact since then. We went to a couple of conferences together, 3 or 4. So I come from a very, very technical background. So I'm, pretty much like those questions that I just answered, they were hard questions for me, because I'm not really a photo product person, but I can imagine myself to be. So I come from kind of like this technology science background. So I feel like that sort of expertise that I have can balance your team's expertise, being able to see what is the product, how it needs to be designed for consumers to be able to really mesh and be compatible with what's out there. Like for the longest time, I had no idea that PhotoDay, not the company name, but PhotoDay actually exists, right? And why it's important. And then I came to this conference and I was amazed at how many companies and products are out there and how many people are interested in photographers out there that are specifically interested in the PhotoDay like cases, which was completely new to me. So I was very interested to learn that. So I bring a lot of technical expertise, and I can talk about clouds and whether AWS is better than Google Cloud and vice versa, whether Microsoft Cloud can play any role in helping your business, whether Docker containers is a thing to use or to ignore. Should you invest into your programming skills? Should it be Java or Python or JavaScript? All of those things. So I can pretty much answer PhotoDay's technical questions from about 10 or 15 years of background in software design, architectural engineering, and cloud creation. So my company's name is Nventify, and what we do is we develop a cloud software that we call Imagizer. And what Imagizer is, it's kind of like Photoshop on the cloud. So imagine Lightroom/Photoshop features available as a web API out there for essentially your platform design. So if you're designing a website or a service that takes in visual content and you want this content to be manipulated for your end clients, for example, size photos and images for mobile devices, or do color balancing, or do white balancing, blurring, sharpening, cropping, rotation, EXIF data analysis, all of those things. We present essentially a piece of cloud software that can do all of that without you guys developing or needing to develop anything in-house. So we provide this as software as service, but we also provide it as a container and as a virtual machine that you can run in your own cloud. So it's like we have two paths. So there's some companies out there who are not very technical. They're just focused on their product, which is great. We help them from the SaaS perspective, or software as service, where they can use our cloud API to do what they want with their images. So one of our largest clients is Nordstrom.com. When you go to Nordstrom.com, all images that you see are processed by Imagizer. So, and there's millions of pictures are being served daily. And I think they make like $1 billion in revenues on mobile. So that's, let's just say we're pretty happy having them as a client. I would say yes, very, very typical. And given the fact that performance and conversion into sales is pretty much paramount for any type of e-commerce out there. And when I say e-commerce, I don't just mean retail. I mean pretty much anywhere where you do a transaction. And transaction, basically, you have a product, whether it's a real product or a digital product, and somebody pays money for it. So that's the definition of e-commerce in our minds. And the stats that we have from the world, so to speak, that 1 second delay in web page rendering drops your conversion by about 7%. So imagine Nordstrom making $1 billion a year. Now imagine 7% improvement on top of that, right? So that's huge. That's like $70 million just to make your page 1 second faster. Now imagine a page being a few seconds slower. Now we're talking about, 10, 15, 20% of user drop off, where they just disappear and all go somewhere else to your competitor. So performance is why we exist. We help people to get an A grade on image compression. And essentially be scored higher in Google PageRank. There is a lot of companies that are using it as is because it has like 150 image manipulation features. So likely you will find the 30 that you need out of 150, and you can use it right away. However, every once in a while, somebody like Macy's or Home Depot or Nordstrom comes in and they say, okay, well, we like JPEGs, but we also like Mozilla JPEGs. Can you add Mozilla codec into Imagizer? Or they will say, we like WebP. Can you add WebP? And so we'll work with them to get those features in. And of course, those features are likely to be used by other clients. So we listen to the requirements of our clients, and the future clients definitely benefit.